you're gonna find out that jumping on is a lot easier than jumping off. Wow!
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
All right, guys. Hey, here we are again with another episode of the ThinkStopper. You know who it is. It's Trez Mala. That's how we're getting down and doing this. Mikey's unable to make it on this little run today on episode 26. He's out there, literally, he's third base coaching the deal for the little Bambinis, rooting them on. I gave him a call up and was like, hey, you going to be able to make it today? He's like, oh, third inning, bro. So, yeah, unable to do that. But I just want to say thank you, everybody, for supporting us and, keeping us going over there. We're small but mighty, and we're growing. So I just want to say thank you. Tell everybody, you have fun listening to the conversation that you can't have with anybody, or with just anybody, I should say. But yeah, so I'm gonna get into it today, and I'm gonna dive right in. It was like 2 weeks ago. I did a show, and I was out, and the premise of the show was to the performers, us, were to take a hit of acid and perform. And I was like, when I was asked to do this, I was like, oh, this is great. This is something that I already do. Usually I'll do a show when I'm on the tail end of acid, though. You know what I mean? Like I've had I'll do it earlier in the day or something like that. But this one was, you take it like an hour and a half before, and you should be tripping balls by the time you get up on stage. And I did, and I was. It was a good time. And so me and Gilligan and a couple other comedians here in town, we went to downtown, and we went to the Nerd, and they have a show up in the attic, and I got to see a great performance. It was a great show there while I was tripping, and I got to see our guest up on stage, which I hadn't seen, who I haven't seen in a while, and at the bar, we got to talking. We were, talking about the days of old and then the scene here in Las Vegas. And we started talking about conspiracies. And I had no idea that our guest today, which some of you listeners might find this a little bit out of left field, but porn star QUINN RAIN is with us.
Yes, hello.
Yeah. And so Quinn, you were like, oh, what conspiracy, like what are you into? And I was like, oh man, whatever. And so you're like, oh, you want to talk about, government spying? You want to talk about, tech stuff, or you want to, Yeah. And I was like, lizard people?
No, I mean, I'm game for lizard people. I'm not as educated on that as I could be, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, usually people get really like,
I'm aware. I mean, grew up falling asleep to Art Bell. Like, that's how you live out here in the Southwest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what's funny, too, is when we were there and we were at the bar and we were talking, and Tom Garland was working the bar, and we were all talking stuff, and RVD was there, Rob Van Dam, the whole damn show, and we're there, and a few other comics and stuff, and we were talking, and then we were talking to Tom about conspiracy, and he goes, frantic caller, with the Art Bell. Yeah, it just sent chills up my spine.
Yeah,
I was like,
that is one of my favorite pieces. That's really, unless that guy is like the best voice actor and like really did like just a prime piece. I mean,
the fear in that guy's voice, the panic, you know, like there was sincerity there. Like it comes through the audio, even when you hear it on, you know, it's a recording, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, that one jarred me.
Yeah, that one too, I think, has reached pop culture in a lot of ways, and it's sampled in like music. I mean, Tool sampled it, and I think it gives a little bit of like an intro point, and you're like, what is he talking about? And it can pull you in, and then you end up on, you know, Coast to Coast, or you end up on some other website and talk about things that aren't at the like surface level of society. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing is there's that. Oh yeah, that's just conspiracy. Oh, that's just craziness, or you know, and it's one of the guys that I'm very big into and have been big into is David Icke.
Okay.
And you know, and a lot of stuff that he's always talked about has come true. He's been like way ahead of his game, you know, calling out stuff. And one of the things, you know, he was just like, hey, look, just because you can't comprehend it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, like we only see a small percentage in the spectrum of light, where there's like another 90% that we don't see, you know. He goes, just look at how cats see shit compared to what you see in other animals, you know. And it's like, it's true. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, or like those shrimp that can see the full color spectrum.
Shrimp can, really?
Yeah, they're these, to us, they're these beautiful rainbow shrimp, and like they have so many more light receptors in their eyes. Like we have cones and rods, and they have like multiple, I can't remember the number, and like they just see everything absolutely vivid, like it's incomprehensible.
Really? So there's no way it'd be like right now we're like trying to describe colors to a blind person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like describe like, oh yeah, no, it's a bird, it's got wings. Fuck, what are wings to, you know what I mean? Like shit. You know, there's a lot going on without having to touch and feel, but I didn't know that about shrimp. Yeah, you know,
there's one kind of shrimp. It's I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, really?
It's like rainbow shrimp or something. Yeah.
Because you know, like I used to eat a lot of that stuff, but then once I learned that like shrimp and lobster and stuff are like on the same spectrum as like, or in the same category as cockroaches and other. Yeah. I was like, oh, that kind of ruined it for me a little bit. You know, I don't care how much butter's. You know, like I just, you know, last time. We're for our honeymoon, we're going to the Dominican Republic. You know, they're like, yeah, serve with fresh lobster, and I'm like, that does nothing for me. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
I stopped eating animals a long time ago.
Oh yeah. See, no, I'm still a meat eater. You know, but yeah, the bugs.
That was a very early thing for me. Was not bugs and not octopus, because they're so smart.
Yeah, you know,
I have like a lot of guilt around that animal.
No, I for some reason I've always I got into a fight one time. Luckily, you know, blows weren't thrown or anything, but we got into a really big pissing match. I was visiting. I was living out here at the time, but I went to Catalina, California, and we're there, and these dudes were fishing, and they were like, "Hey, you know, we have some extra poles. Do you wanna fish?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I was there, and this was this was not my girlfriend or my wife now, but this is the girlfriend at the time. We're hanging out there, and so then these Asian dudes come over. Right, and they're about the same age as us, you know. They're at the time they were probably in their 30s, and one of them catches an octopus, you know, and he just starts like whip, like, you know, it's on his thing and he can't like get it off, so he just starts smashing on the ground like over and over again. And it was a little one, but he kept doing it. I was like, I jumped up and I was like, yo, you know, I sprung up, you know, and I was, you can't be doing, you know, and he got all up in my face, and his friends were all there, and I was like, dude, that's a living thing, you know. He's like, and this is like before I even knew the extent of like how intelligent they were, but I was like, it was disturbing, you know. Yeah. I probably, I have to be honest, I probably wouldn't have had the same effect if it was like a mackerel. But for some reason, I just like, I felt like I had to go into the defense of the octopus, you know. But
totally.
Well, now, why the choice of vegetarian or is it veganism or pescatarian? I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I was vegan for 4 years, and then my body was not so happy about that choice, and so I am eating some fish. And it was a process of a lot of things. If it's environmental impact and like social like guilt around eating a living thing as well. So both. And then also I found I was allergic to eggs, just cannot digest them.
Oh, wow.
So I stopped eating eggs, and then that kind of chicken and the egg, I can't digest chicken either. So it's threefold, personal health, and then like social impact, and then like ethics.
What happened? What's the deal with the egg allergy?
I just
Or
couldn't keep food down. Couldn't
is it
figure
just-
out why breakfast never stayed down. Then did a blood test, and it was like off the chart. Like egg allergy was very serious.
Whoa.
Cut that out. Better digestive. So yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, health is in the gut.
Yeah.
I've always my grandma was always big on that. And then that's always been my thing. Actually, I don't really get into it too much, but it has, and I will, especially this week. But started doing coffee enemas not that long ago.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it's quite amazing. I had a big fear, and I think getting over that little hump was a big part of it, but a big relief. But I've always had tummy troubles, and that's helped out like a lot. And I've always worried about do I have a parasite? Do I have something in me that I don't know? So I'd always do these little detox things and stuff like that. But I started doing the coffee enemas, and just the first one was almost like I went to a spa, and I had this crazy rush, so then after I whatever, and it did the thing, and I take this really hot shower, and I was just I was buzzing for hours. I was like, holy shit, I understand why people I was like, I understand why people do this. But I started learning more about it, and it helps your body detox the liver. The caffeine makes the liver produce this crazy enzyme that's a super flush to the body, And there was you ever heard of the Gerson diet?
I haven't. I'm not off the top of my head. Yeah.
So way back in the 50s or something, this guy found out eating a lot of raw vegetables, and I forget exactly, but getting certain kind of, it's almost like you're oh, this guy's just talking about a paleo kind of diet, it's if you are going to eat these meats, eat lean meats, but it's mostly eat avocado and coconut oil, and get that stuff. But a big thing was coffee, and it was 5 a day. And I was who's got that kind of time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless you're but it on record and everything is cured cancer and stuff, you know? Kind of like the guy after, that's got a lot more press after Nipsey was killed, Dr. CB. Kind of the same thing. And he and the Gerson diet had a very similar protocol, but coffee enema is a big thing.
Oh man, I can't remember the names of it. My grandmother went to Mexico to this Amish hospital where they ate raw, and they did coffee enemas to fight her breast cancer, and left breast cured, came in the right, because usually you don't get both at the same time, and she went to the same hospital and has been cured.
Really?
From that process, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A couple other things they were doing. I don't think it was purely that, but there is, and I don't know the doctor she went to.
I think you do any and all the above.
Yeah.
And to avoid chemotherapy, and that's one of the things, we get into. That's one of the things that I always talk about. I bring up and we get into is the whole aspect of the ThinkStopper side of things of the podcast, or just the mindset of it is stop and think for a little bit, kind of learn the history or learn a little stuff, because we follow along way too much, and chemotherapy and stuff like that has really, really nefarious origins, really, really ominous beginnings. And one of the deals there is, it's basically who wins. Is
Yeah.
it the cancer or you? Because it just kills
Yeah.
until whoever survives, And one of my good friends who's passed away a year ago, when we were teenagers, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he did all these chemotherapy treatments and stuff, and it devastated him,
Yeah.
And when he came back, he was just like, if it ever comes back, he's like, I'll do whatever I can, but he's like, I'd rather die of the shit than fucking go through that again,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he passed away because of all the medications that he was taking, and it gave him a massive heart attack, and he died. And, that's one of the things, though, is they won't allow, like, Big Pharma, they won't allow, like, you to go and find these other treatments. You said
Yeah.
she had to go to
She went to Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
And
Mexico's the land of the free.
I
right?
mean, I guess that's, less corporate pressure on government regulation there. That's a big concept I have a lot of opinions on, but yeah.
And what do you mean as far as?
Like, everything in American society has been kind of filtered through lobbyists, and not the people's mindset. Like, our politicians aren't fighting for us; they're fighting for whoever pays for their campaign. Or
100%.
yeah, and so that affects our regulation, that affects our healthcare system, that affects our education system, that affects everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
I had just made a post because I was, kind of fed up, and I have the same feeling. I expressed the same sentiment on that. And, one of the things I follow are trends researchers and, researchers and stuff. And they've been talking about it for the last, 3 years probably, about blockchain voting. And they're like, they're like, we could totally, with blockchain voting, we could circumvent the majority of politicians and completely get rid of lobbyists and vote directly on, on the issue and not on a politician who's compromised or whatever. And he goes, it's there for, it's on the blockchain. It's there. It so far has been something that hasn't been hacked or can't be corrupted.
Yeah. Also, like, implementing like some sort of crypto security within our voting system would be great. Like, I was at DEF CON when they hacked the Diebold machines, and like everyone knew it was a couple hour thing from them opening the floor and like have at these back end of these voting machines that people found holes immediately.
Well, yeah, people
you
had guys probably from the same thing, but like going in and showing how there's like backdoor programs in on these things already.
Yeah.
The whole voting thing is ridiculous, but that would get rid of so much. And I watched the show. We just talked about it last night. There's a show called Billions, and it's on Showtime, and it's a good show. It's about this guy that insider trading and in the wheeling and dealing with Wall Street and government and shit like that. And this year on this, there's a big kind of thread going through about blockchain voting. And I'm like, these guys, they kind of put it out there because this is stuff that's been making headlines, been trying to do it a little bit, but you have these politicians, and it's like the certain, they have like the bad guys for and against it, but they're putting everything on one side is all about a security issue. This is exactly what you hear about the politicians saying. It's like, oh, you can't have that. It's not secure. I'm like, oh, the systems that you have are secure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and they also can't comprehend it. Like, you don't have to be super educated to be a politician, and like tech wise, like most of them don't have experience with.
No, totally.
Any tech. Yeah.
And the thing is these are all the same fucking people who, they say they're for the people and all stuff like that, but then they haven't done shit, for anybody other than just keep doing the getting reelected game, but these are all the people who are like, they were against weed. Oh, weed's dangerous. You know, now that they're like, now they're like, oh, we can make money on this deal. They're like, oh no, I think we should look into, I hate that. But in that show, Billions, they talk about the blockchain voting, and they were talking about how many people, and this is what I had said in conversation before that even came out, but is how many more people would vote if they could vote on their phone.
Oh yeah.
Right? Instead of going and waiting in line, they're like, all right, it's open. You can vote on the thing, and you maybe you can do it like, all right, you can vote in your certain time zone so it doesn't crash the system or something like that, right? I mean, I don't know exactly how that would work, but there's got to be something that could be implemented.
I mean, we have a national push notification system. Easily could you put a link in and then it comes up, this is your voting period, you have 2 hours, respond. And, make it maybe even slightly more important. I mean, the first step could even be, national holiday to vote, but or mandatory, but that's, like my friend, as much as Brazil's in a mess, like you legally have to vote in Brazil. She lives here. She flew back to vote because she wouldn't be able to renew her passport otherwise. And it was going to expire a month before, and it was just easier for her to go back there.
Yeah, I don't know about, making it mandatory, but one of the things I will say is if we go by the majority, and I've said this many times before, the no vote wins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No vote wins every time.
Yeah. I mean just more accessible. A national a bank holiday.
Well, I went to vote in the local elections, or these last ones that we had and all stuff like that, and we had to wait in these long ass lines. It was cold, and but the argument is it's not safe, it's not secure. If somebody's doing it, you're voting on your phone. It was like, the counter argument, and this is via Gerald Celente, is like, hey, if you could bank on your phone, which needs to be more serious than any other vote or whatever you're doing, then you can vote on your phone. If you can bank on your phone, you can vote on your phone. I'm like, how you gonna argue that? You know what I mean? Like, but then in that system, no one can use any fraudulent, or at least not yet.
Yeah, I think people would open up to other worries like, well, your phone is immediately this supreme tracking device. You have something on you that has multiple cameras, multiple mics, and a GPS locator. And then the government wants me to vote through that. They want to know who they want this piece of security code plus my phone. I'm just bringing, another point of view. That's
totally,
not mine, but I also know how easy it is to get into everything that is your piece of technology and to camera spot and to record all that info and how accessible that can be to someone that's not military or government, and how they actually have a backdoor into all of that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, well that was what was it? WhatsApp just got busted for having something to where the Israeli Mossad had some backdoor into the information or something via the app on their phone. And then what's that? I don't butcher the name, but the Chinese phone that's
Huawei.
Yeah, Huawei.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they got
government
popped.
Backdoor access to every device. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical of any Chinese software produced.
Well, you want to know what's crazy is those things get those get left on our bus all the time. All the time. On the tours, I see these phones all the time. We have they're all dead, no batteries, but who knows? They could still be on for I don't know.
Once your battery's dead, you really have no access to it. But yeah,
I'm just saying it'd be something weird to pull off.
It's crazy too that it's the $20 phone that is the most accessible, through with the government backdoor, and the Huawei and the what's the other brand?
Well, the track phone was, when they were doing the track phone, the Obama phones, those were all that's why they're free. We getting that one lady. We got Obama phones. Everybody get paid. We got Obama phones. That was great.
Yeah, but I mean that's also sometimes why I advocate more for, you know, Apple or a brand that has some, you know, expectation within society of like not having backdoors, and fights a little bit more for that, because Apple has said no many times to like local police of like, no, I will not unlock that phone.
Yeah, but didn't they also like do something where they did give in to that on one case? Like it was like that it's like that Christopher Dorner, the guy that killed the cops in LA or something. I remember they gave in. Everybody was upset that they acquiesced.
I think that they put in the more of the security measures that you have to have a subpoena to unlock. Because like I think you have to have a subpoena to give a officer your password.
Yeah. I don't know the legalities.
But I think there is a fine line where if you have like face unlock, an officer can just face unlock you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the same for the thumbprint, but again, that's going through. I don't know. I'm not up on the exact laws. I don't like work in info security anymore. I used to.
Oh. So. What was it? What was your extent with info security?
Very much like just a consulting aspect and fandom as well. You know, I thought I was going to go into it more full time on what they call, and it's funny coming from an adult entertainer, penetration testing.
Nice.
And
sounds like my kind of job.
It's really fun, and it turns into like kind of like spy for hire, where you go into a corporate company, usually corporate, and try to find all of the holes in their physical security and their tech security, and also the like human aspect of it. And so you have to have your people trained as well to be aware of security information. So like my kind of favorite part of it would be social engineering, which my friend says like that's just fancy words for manipulating people. But if you're trying to get a certain goal out of someone or a certain piece of information or them to do something specific, there's a lot of ways to approach that, and kind of even like prime them or mentalist them. In a lot of ways, mentalists use that as well, to get information without directly asking for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
With with you saying social engineering, like, to what aspect with that would you deal with? Like in great detail, like anything that you would do, or is it anything that you would try to detect, break, or?
I mean, from what I was doing, you want to like get a password, or you want to. Most of what I was doing, like I was helping individuals. A lot of the tech I did was helping, people directly paying me and helping them with another, tech hardware situation or some sort of situation, and just kind of reverse engineering information out of whatever the setting was. And sometimes it's very easy to call your bank or your internet service provider, and as someone with a female voice, play dumb. Mm-hmm. And get the info that I'm not technically supposed to get out of them from just asking questions in a specific pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I always wonder because I've seen that done on shows where guys have gotten their people's passcodes and stuff like that, and I just sit there and I think, I was like, I don't remember my passcodes for one, two, because usually when I make them up, like it's just something that it popcorns into my head. You know what I mean? Squibbly bobbly, titties or what? You know what I mean? Like something weird like that, and then I just leave it to the device to save. And if I need it, I'll But so I just wonder, I was like, how would they get that out of me? Like how would somebody, how like,
maybe not as much the individual as like I said, like your phone provider, your internet service provider, or Apple, or at DEF CON will play games where people that are particularly good at social engineering, and this was not me, but people that are very good at it would do competitions like tournament style competitions that go down to like a head to head, but they would call Boeing and they would call Microsoft and they would play these certain lines of, oh, hi, I'm Stacy. I'm new at tech support. Can you just tell me a little bit about the computer you're working on? Like, I'm just trying to do a checkup. I'm not there right now. I'll be in the office in a little bit. They're not coming in the office, but they're trying to get as much information as they can. And then they'll lead you down to, can you just check out this website real quick? And the thing is that if you ask a certain line of questions, what is your internet browser? Do you have any firewalls? Do you have any of this information? You can then tweak a piece of code that works as a virus or like a keylogger. And if you ask them to go to a website, that code is prepped that when they
go there,
when they access the website, it can then access that computer. And so the game we play at DEF CON sends them to a website that says like, hey, what you just did would have compromised your whole system. So please educate yourself on like, you know, how people social engineer you for tech pieces. And like,
wow,
it's really fun. I mean, it's fun. And like, if you think about like a spy versus spy kind of aspect, like there's the black hat people that are malicious. There's white hat. There's people that fall in between and gray. I definitely lean very white. I never did anything malicious, but also being aware of.
Is that ethical hackers or ethical hacking?
Yeah. I mean, I was just paying the bills and because I wasn't hacking. I'm not that smart, but I was, helping people with the security of their systems and their, life and their businesses. It's fun to learn more stuff, people that are on that edge. Educating people on that because you get those calls of those Indian dudes that are, going to tell your grandma that they're Microsoft and then they get in the system and then, they put ransomware or they get their bank info and then, they lose a lot of money from malicious people in other countries that are tech savvy and recognize that a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, I had a guy one time say he wanted to help out with like my website, and he was just like, "Hey, dude," he's like, "Here's my stuff. Just click on this link." And next thing you know, like I'm getting all these things. Your emails were changed. Your email's been changed, and did it like they got into my thing, and luckily I was able to get a hold of Wix, and they took care of all that stuff like that, and but I was like, whoa,
yeah.
like and I just it was like check out my work, so you're just thinking, oh hey, this guy's throwing like, and I'm thinking, did I meet him at a show?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or whatever, like, but it was something weird to that. And I was like, yeah, I'll click on the link, the email, send it directly to me, like whatever, that easy,
Phishing, yeah,
Yeah,
because they hope that you doubt, like, oh, I could have met them, or like this would help me, yeah.
Yeah, when I met the guy that I was working with today, and he's kind of got a little of that going on. I've never met him before in my life. He's like, hey, man. He goes, I know you. He's like, I remember you from... And I'm like... well,
yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And then like years later, I'm like, do I know that guy? But
the other thing I have a fear about in society when people try to do that to me a little is also like, hey, you look familiar. And I like grit my teeth. And I'm like... I'm not sure where you saw me and if I had my clothes on. Like,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Totally. So real quick, just for anybody that's listening, as far as our listeners, if they don't know, which I'm sure they might, but DEF CON.
Yes. Okay. DEF CON is a annual hacker convention that happens in Las Vegas.
Yes.
It is a cash-only operation because it tends to be the situation where people figure out that your RFID card can be hacked from 15 feet away, or that,
Jesus.
It is cutting edge people that often live off the grid. Some of them work for the government. Some of them are contractors. But it's really fun. It's really about getting drunk and playing around with people that are smarter than you and learning things and getting drunk.
It didn't, I remember hearing somebody, one of my friends, they were really into lock picking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a really big thing.
I used to carry lock picks in my purse just for fun. people
Really?
kind of frown if you pull that out instead of like doing your knitting in a lobby, start lock picking. But yeah, that's a good game. That's a surprisingly interesting skill set. It's more of like a puzzle solving game. One of the first rules is, don't pick a lock you'll ever use again, and don't pick someone else's lock. But it's fun. The same, if you ever watch Mr. Robot, there's some...
I remember that, yeah.
There's some fantastical elements of that, but a lot of the writers on that reference a lot of people that work in the InfoSec security world, and a lot of things in there are real. And the things that seem a little hazy, and like there are scripts and there are devices in that absolutely exist.
InfoSec.
Info security.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, a new kind of bug.
I mean, it's just, your kind of government abbreviation to like comment on something. Yeah.
That's why I don't think I'd ever do good in the military, all the acronyms for everything, like it took me forever to learn what PT was. What the fuck is PT? Like,
yeah. Oh man, I dated someone for a long time that was a drone operator. And so that was a lot of acronyms. Also someone that is a rational logic puzzle solver myself doesn't work well with someone that's doing black ops and isn't supposed to tell me like where he is. I'm like, but I realized what time zone you're in, like where you're awake, like, and so I wasn't supposed to be like, so how's Africa, like that kind of thing.
Oh man.
Yeah.
How long was he a drone operator?
Oof. Let's see. We broke up and he was still on the 6th year of his SOCOM contract. And then he was in the Air Force 6 years before that. But he worked on drones for, I think I knew him for 5 years.
Flying or making
so
or
there's
programming?
So 2 people operate a Reaper, which is that main famous Obama one, and they're still in function. And you have your pilot, you have your sensor operator. Your sensor operator does all of your cameras and your bombs.
Oh wow!
And so he was a sensor op.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Terrible shot. Those guys' success rate is like what, 3% of their target or some shit like that.
Ooh,
As I say, I follow a lot of that. I used to follow a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
It ended up being the same news over and over again,
He, they wouldn't let him out or switch jobs because he was in the top like 99. He was really good.
As long as you're hitting your target, I get, that's the deal. It's just when you're like, oh, what?
But also it's such a psychology thing where like your target looks a lot like Call of Duty. You are not on the ground. And
100%.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about that, like it really separates it really separates from you from that. And one of my buddies, he's had an issue with that. I don't know to what capacity he's done, but he don't talk shit about it. And
yeah, they don't.
He's got he has an insane amount of money that he's made, and he's like a grocer.
Mm-hmm.
Weird,
Yeah,
and he is. I think he's I honestly think he's a sheep dip kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be doing something greasy. He's supposedly outdone and everything, but I still think he's under the table payroll or something.
Yeah, at a certain point you operate in that world for so long. Like, how do you integrate into civilian society?
Oh yeah, one of my wife's friends was 25 years in the military or something. I forget, but she got the highest that a female, a woman could get in the Army, whatever, on like her rank and all that stuff, like top dog specialist and stuff. But she's doing her best and like acclimating, but she's having a hard time, like she still refers to everybody as civilians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's like, it's just weird, like being a civilian with all you civilians, and it's like, quit talking to people, like, you know what I mean? It's like,
the other thing too is like, if you like you wake up every day, someone tells you where you are, what time you do things, and what you do and how you do it, and then you have to think for yourself.
Well, she was the one telling people what to do, so.
But still, there was someone above her being like, there's protocols and ways you
100%,
act,
yep.
and you were within the structure, and it kind of even lends to the same way that like cults create a mindset of a structure of how you operate, and then there's less questioning.
Well, one of the things that I notice about all my military friends, and this isn't a knock on them, but this is like, I'm just like, there's a psyop that happens to where this is what happens when you get out. They all, whether they were before, but I'm talking 98% of them become motorcycle gang guys, become motorcycle guys.
Yeah.
All of them. I'm riding with my brothers. I feel free. Da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, and all of them. And my one friend, he passed away a few years back, on a motorcycle, but he dealt with like all this crazy depression and rage and stuff like that. And he was in stuff way too long. He was a photographer.
Ooh, yeah.
And so he would just go into everything. He's just like, dude, he's like, we just got kids killing kids over there. He's like, I'm following these kids in to go fight these people. And he goes, I got a camera.
Yeah.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Their balls haven't even dropped yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he had that whole, the guilt of the survivor's guilt, but all of them, him especially, they're all motorcycle guys, and I was like, there's something that happens in the training or in the military to where when you get out, you're a motorcycle guy.
There's just from an outsider on both, maybe there's still that like group support, band of brothers kind of thing, but you have this like borderline kind of rebel mentality where like, fuck the like superior, like I don't want someone to tell me what to do, but I'm still in this support structure, and we still have a structure of operations.
Yeah, and I also think like driving, like when you're on a bike, you're hitting, especially when the wind's hitting you, you're like, all your nerves are being like stimulated. It's not like driving in a car where you kind of zone out.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're doing a bike, but you have the wind hitting you. So I think it has something to do with trigger, like the intensity of like being in some, there has to be a level of intent. Cause I didn't join the military. I never went in the military. I went into the recruiting office and I was in the middle of my test, right?
Your ASVAB.
And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the math and I was just like, I could be making money or I could be doing this,
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I looked at the dude, and the dude was just had his feet up on the table and was chilling. I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, and then you would like sign your life away for 4 to 8 years.
Yeah, so I started walking out. I was like, hey man, I was like, I think I'm good on this, dude. Like, and he goes, what do you mean? I was like, well, I'm kind of going over things. I was like, I haven't really given it a shot on what I really want to do, And he's like, well, this is a great way to get, security. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I was, doing the whole math thing. And I was like, I deal with money. You know what I mean? I'm like looking at this stuff, I'm like, I don't see like money in my hands doing in this pursuit, Yeah. And he looks and he goes, if it's the math, I'll help you. And I was like, whoa! I was like, all right, nah. I'm like, I'm good now. I mean, you just solidified it right there. Like, no, I'm good. It had nothing to do with that. I could do your little fractions and all that stuff. I sold dope long enough. I know that, you know what I mean? And that really fucked with my head though. That really fucked with my head. Over there, and I kind of got it. So I don't know the stress that they go through, but I do know all my good friends that went in, and when they came out, they're not the same people at all.
Yeah.
They're not the same. Like the humor ain't the same. The whole thing. It's a different. There's some different people.
Psychological, like I mean, there's a big way that they purposely break you to make you think a certain way, and then there's a lot of things you have to observe and process and then not talk about.
Yeah.
And Oh man, that's like this other thing I was recently talking about is like the Tic Tac UFO. Is that
Yes.
all of these UFOs have been observed by fighter pilots for so long. But if you came back and told your superiors, I saw this object that does not operate within the realm of physics, and it does not look like even any flying object I've ever observed. And like, fighter pilots are very educated, top of their class, and hit all the health marks and, are on their way to be astronauts. But if they're like, I saw this thing that doesn't make sense, and it's like, shut up. Like, you obviously have been up there too long and didn't get enough oxygen, and like, or like you're about to break and we don't trust your psychology. Like, don't talk about that. But only recently, this year, did the Navy open up that like we have a formal way for you to report an unidentified object, flying object.
And now, how long is this like been going on that you're talking about, like referencing for them?
The Tic Tac or the seeing things.
Well, yeah, the seeing things, the Tic Tac, like the whole keeping it on the hush up until now. Like, how long is this has been?
You hear about pilots from World War II or earlier saying, I saw something that did not make sense. And at a certain point, your depth of field, you maybe did see something super far away and it didn't make sense. But now, like I said, these fighter pilots today are so educated and they see this object. Oh, and also they have all these sensors, right? Like the drone that has all of these different cameras. It's not just one camera. And so if it doesn't register on heat and it's throwing off your radar and you're like, what? That thing must have some sort of crazy magnetic field. Or it's moving at an impossible speed and making maneuvers that we have never seen.
Yeah.
Like something cannot turn an angle or float.
Oh, I've
like,
seen
like a helicopter can float, but it only floats a certain way, and if it moves, it has a path and way that it moves in that floating. But when you're that high, there's not a human-made structure we're aware of that can do that. And so that's where I don't know, I move a little away from being like such a hard skeptic and be more of like, well, there has to be some sort of explanation, but it doesn't seem like our current science has that answer.
No, 100%. Now there's a whole lot of like, the whole Project Bluebeam. Like this has been a slow work, to get people to unite and stuff and all. But throughout the history, throughout different histories, there's been these sightings. What's the book? It's called the Eden of the Gods.
I haven't read that.
And it's a really good book, but it talks about during the time of the Black Plague, there was sightings of this unidentified object in the sky, something flying, like disc shape or whatever, and leaving like this crazy, mist, like they was spraying, and then shortly after, people were getting like crazy sick. And this is stuff that's been like that has been reported and suppressed and all. I think it's called Eden of the Gods or something like that. And then, but throughout history, you hear about this stuff, So you hear it's been written, it's been documented in, in other ancient histories, Now, when you get to today's deal, like with it, I have like this whole thing, like what I believe as far as them. I think like if there are aliens, which I would think they would be more interdimensional.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I think who is here is trapped here.
Huh. See, and
we're kind of like
yeah.
we're kind of like their little alien ant farm, if you will, to help them get this place ready so they could get the fuck out of here. I think they're right. I think this is like a prison planet in a sense, that they're trapped in a certain thing.
I kind of have a point of view, again, if we have drones, we have these unmanned vehicles. I think maybe often what we're experiencing maybe more today is like a probe, because there's so much distance. Like there has to be another sentient being out in space.
100%. Yeah. It'd be pretty arrogant, I would think, if it is an infinity.
Well, yeah, and statistically, there just has to be. And if we are younger than a lot of other civilizations, just in the span of humanity, maybe we're experiencing some sort of like unmanned probe kind of thing. Well,
We're the comedy of the cosmic realm, right?
I mean, I'll take a Douglas Adams approach to the rest of the world, of the rest of the universe all the time. You know,
Well, I'm not
Douglas
familiar.
Adams is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he, hardened atheist, skeptic, but also like recognized that there's probably aliens. They're probably hilarious.
Yeah.
So.
No, definitely. I believe. Now, here's my thing. When you're talking about, these flying crafts, this is why I've had paranormal experiences as a child. Growing up, one of my friends, their neighbor across the street, they had this closet. It was this little pantry closet, and it was solid, right? But you open up the door, fucking blow air at you. Close it up, no air at the bottom. But you open the door, there's no draft, no vent, no nothing. You know what I mean? Just blows air. They don't put anything in it, no coats, no nothing, right? Weird,
Got
right?
a little glitch in the matrix.
Right? So that's one of the things that like they're like it's haunted. Somebody they think they said somebody hung them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. So later on in life, or earlier in life, prior to that, we used to live in Huntington Beach when I was a kid, and we lived in this house, and it was fucking haunted, fucking weird shit, fucking stuff moving all the time, So I've always had like this connection, like I always, I had my my little imaginary friend, and weird shit would happen. Me, it was my drop dead Fred, his name was Baby Monster, and and so I'm young and I'm camping, and we're out over here in the Mojave Desert. It's Anza Borrego out there, me and my uncle, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, which is late when you're camping, when the sun goes down, and you're at the fire. It's just you turn in usually, and we had a spotting scope. And looking up in the sky, I'm like trying to focus in on what's left of the moon, with the sliver, so we can see all the stars.
Yeah.
And my uncle's like, "Look, there's a satellite," and we see this thing cruising. So I'm like, "Sweet, I'm following the satellite." So then I see this thing, and it's this little like pistachio nut-looking thing in the sky, right? Remind me of the Flight of the Navigator. Like it's something like that, because it was bright, it was shining, but it's way the fuck up there. It's a dot.
Yeah.
But just like like we just had a little gnat in here, but just like those gnats you see that like fly in little square patterns, it was doing that way up there. But then it would like bounce back and forth between one, or like fly in a square, or it'd stay.
Yeah.
And then like I remember it would just like
Jump.
just fucking just take off.
Yeah.
Like, and then it'd fly back, and then another one came over.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my uncle, I'm like, "Oh my God." And he's looking, he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what it is, He's like, "Could be military, it could be, satellite." And I was like, "No, you didn't see that thing move," because it was just like doing its little thing. You didn't see that thing go. And he stood there for a while. He's like, "Well, I'm going to bed. Tell me how it turns out." I stayed out there till like the sun came up, and it only came after it took off, after they both took off. One came back for a brief second, like, and then took off. And I may have hallucinated that.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact, my uncle was there, we talk about it, but never seen anything fly like that. And then I was like, again, my uncle said it could have been military, but...
Especially out in the Mojave. Like,
Yeah, but this was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, my dad grew up out here. My mom's side, my grandparents had several hundred acres out in Pahrump, which is, to get out to Pahrump, you got to pass Mercury, which is your pathway up to Area 51. And, there's also, being out in a desert, even if you're just kind of staring at the sky for a while, things do kind of feel eerie.
Shit.
Yeah.
You'll see some shit out there.
But in the same, again,
it's like being in the ocean.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, shit.
But if someone else sees it, like, that starts to maybe solidify things in some ways. I know I have a personal explanation for a lot of other people's like, or even my like experiences of like abduction or like seeing like walkers kind of situation. And that's,
What do you mean by a walker?
like seeing an alien in like kind of a dream state. Well, I was gonna say like
Okay.
I've had sleep paralysis a lot.
Oh wow,
Since
I've
I was
heard
a
of that.
kid. And what's crazy about it is that you're in this kind of, the way I explain it from a tech point of view is like your reboot didn't process properly, and so your mind's awake, your body's mostly still asleep, and it's usually when you're around that REM cycle, so your eyes flutter anyways when you're dreaming. So your eyes do this flutter, so you have this like frame rate of experiencing reality. And because you're paralyzed, because of the, your body paralyzes while you dream so that you don't get up and walk around or kill people or kick people or piss the bed, whichever,
Guilty.
you're very afraid because you can't move, but your mind's awake. And then you do hallucinate in that state. But what's crazy to me is that a lot of people see very similar hallucinations cross culture, cross century. Like, so there's a lot of like cultural boogeyman, your chupacabra, your regional kind of spookies, right? But seeing the few sleep paralysis figures that have been showing up for hundreds of years in the human mind throughout different societies and are recorded in different ways, but there's a hag or like a demon that sits on your chest. Then there's a long, tall, I don't want to say slender man.
I was
but
going to say, I think I know what you're talking
there's the
about.
long, spooky guy, and there's usually a man in a hat.
Yeah, I've heard of I think I've heard of all three of them, to be honest with you. But the man in the hat, like, people draw that one.
People draw the man in the hat. I get the long-armed guy, and he has these glowing, piercing eyes.
Are they like long up and down eyes, or are they like?
Mine are just piercing straight, glowing eyes. This like blurry being. It tends to peek through the doorway or be coming in, and you cannot scream, but you are screaming. There is so much fear you're experiencing, and you are fighting it. And also it tends to be in your peripheral because you can't move. So here's this thing sitting right on that edge. It's that horror movie. It's that Alien, the movies where it breathes in your ear.
Yeah. Oh man.
But you also have this immediate fear of feeling, full body feeling that is evil. And you can pick that off of some people. Sometimes they're doing something sketchy, like that person's malicious, or they're not. But that is just like pure evil. But
so, do you think it's more than just than the biological side of it? Do you know, like, you're in the state of dreaming and sleeping, so you know your body is in paralysis because you like you said, you don't attack or anything. But do you also think it might be like something like you are under a spell, or you are being you are being
I don't really sign
probed, or
I think it's a great explanation for the probing and for even people's experiences of abduction, because when you dream, your brain releases DMT.
yeah, no, total.
And so I find that it's very similar to the kind of beings people see when they break through. But when you're going to...
I've never done it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you go to it in a pause... And I had sleep paralysis before I messed with any hallucinogenics. I think you're primed yourself to hallucinate, and you're ready to see this thing or to experience some sort of enlightenment. When it just shows up halfway through your sleep and you have some sort of being and some sort of hallucination coming in, I'm not going, like, that's where the fear aspect, but they're all very similar beings. Like, a lot of people describe them in similar ways. One's in a positive light, one in a fear light. But they have a similar, I don't know if it's...
The janitors or the escorts or whatnot, people, the elf people that I've heard about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but I've never done DMT. Never had a chance, so.
I don't think I've done enough. But
really?
I haven't broken through. But I know other people that have and see something similar to what I see in a fear state of the sleep paralysis. So I don't know if that is a multidimensional being or some sort of other connection. But I think it also explains a lot of other unexplainable experiences people have. The mind is vast, and that there is this long-running documentation of hallucinations that are happening cross-culture with people that have never, spoken to each other and never consumed the same media, seeing a similar being in their same hallucination.
Yeah,
That's
there was like a phenomena where people would actually, it's kind of like a Slender Man thing, but I thought, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that kind of like a Slender Man, kind of like a Bloody Mary thing?
Yeah,
or?
creepypasta kind of, but like a social, like the Bloody Mary was handed down between kids and kids, through your grade school experiences, and Bloody Mary was, and Slender Man, there's a faster way to connect, folklore. And so a lot of the internet folklore moves a lot quicker now. But I just said, Slender Man is image people can conjure really quickly that kind of describes what a lot of people have been seeing in the sleep paralysis figures for a long time.
Yeah, I remember and then there's also like you always get the phenomena with people seeing the shadow people.
Mm-hmm. That's I usually call the sleep paralysis people shadow people because that's what they kind of look like.
It's funny that we're talking about this because just today when I got off work, I had to go. My wife went to go get her lashes done or whatever, and she forgot her wallet, so I had to drive it to her. And I was driving by this place where it was over by where we used to live, and I was just telling my son, I was like, "Hey, we used to go running through here,
Mm-hmm.
And one day when I was running through, I ran into a dude who I used to know from high school, and he did a lot of acid. He just did a lot of drugs, but he did a lot of speed, and but I think he was probably tweaking for a week or what, he's on a bender, sleep. He took some acid and and not like just took some acid, like, he went on like another bender.
Yeah.
And ever since then he had like the shadow people fucking deal.
Again, the hallucination though, the mind's vast, but
I know, but this is the thing is like it affected him dearly. Like we're talking for years, and he learned how to cope with it. But we would sit there, and I remember running into him a few years later, and we're sitting there and we're talking, and I was just like, hey, dude, don't let me fuck with you. I'm not here, but I was just like, I've done a lot of research and I've looked into stuff, and I was just curious. I'm like, you still see the shadow people, dude. I'm not making fun or anything. I know, I'm more in knowing what you're talking about. And he's just like, there's one in the tree right now.
Oof.
And I was like, oh,
Oof.
right. So yeah, and he's just like, I just learned to deal with it, dude. But
Yeah.
he's like, they'll just pop up.
Yeah.
The shadow will grow long, and it'll reach, and I'm like, whoa,
goosebumps though, because that's a lot how the sleep paralysis one's for me, and I know I don't fall into the schizophrenic spectrum, but when you've got some sort of being that you can't explain. I also, in college, I was at RA, and our student housing building was previously a burned down theater in Chicago.
Oh, geez.
And it burned down during a show in the 1800s. And as an RA, you have to walk the whole building several times a night.
RE?
RA, a resident advisor. You're, some people say narc, but really just babysitter for 18-year-olds that have never lived on their own. It was inexpensive way to get housing in college. I mean, you got paid and you got free housing. I never reported anyone for their weed smoking, but you did have to make sure, no one was passed out in the hallway and everyone was alive.
Everybody's conducting themselves without fucking up for everybody else.
Yeah. But there'd be times where we walk the building. You're always in pairs. And this building was definitely haunted. And like it was one of the stops on the Chicago ghost tour. Like people would hang out in our alleyway and talk about how haunted the building we lived in is.
Oh, wow.
But there would be many times where both of us kind of skeptic, educated but young kids would be like, did you see that thing walk past in the hallway? Fully lit hallway. But yeah, there's some other space coming and going sometimes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're definitely, in the I guess you say in the quantum realm, like it's all happening at once. Like I think we get that crossover or something finds a way to be in our light spectrum again or whatnot.
Yeah.
They're like trapped here. But that's crazy. That's crazy that you're in haunted. Did you ever you get that? Oh, and here's a little something too. Is this place is haunted. This
this whole neighborhood, because I used to work down the street, old Vegas again, like old Chicago, like there are buildings and there's presence sometimes.
No,
and I come about things very skeptically sometimes too. I don't know, like growing up my parents were very religious and I was Christian homeschooled, so like every explanation was like God. Or like when I was a kid, I don't know, my parents didn't like kind of maybe pushed me into the soft realm of like indigo child bullshit. But I'd make a comment about something like, oh, you're seeing angels. Or like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I'd talk about seeing these like cats coming in and out of the house. We didn't have cats. And, oh, you're seeing demons. And like you have this extra sense. And I don't know if it was my very religious parents kind of pushing on ideas to a very soft mind. Kind of like priming setup, because are you familiar with the Indigo Children?
No.
It was
not to say that I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I've heard of it.
It was this kind of like cult setup, growing out of psychology, I believe in the 50s, but it became popular again in the 90s and it's based around like aura reading, and not super into that, where they like photograph your aura, and if someone has an indigo aura, usually a child, they tend to be they thought they had extra sense and had like supernatural abilities. They tend to be like mind reading kids. A lot of them
Tyler Masons or whatever, the Hollywood medium.
Yeah, but like Julian Assange was raised as an indigo child.
Yeah, he was. They all had like the white platinum hair where he grew up.
Tend to be dyed, but they were like homeschooled and like hyper intelligent kids, and also.
That was in Australia, right?
Yeah, it was like, and he grew up on like a cult space, but like some of it dips into like Christian mentality as well. But they, I think, tended to be kids that maybe were on the higher educational realm and maybe had not
talking like Mensa
spectrum, yeah, or like kind of your savant, kind of like really good at one thing and not great at others, and so they were maybe hyper aware and picking up on like tiny features that adults just ignore, and so, but maybe some of them did have some gifts, who knows? But yeah, there's.
So you think your folks, like when it came to that stuff, were kind of like pushing that to maybe see if you would, I don't know,
they believe
explore or exercise that maybe?
There's an element of non-denominational Christian that's like the gifts of the Spirit, and it kind of leans into a kind of supernatural explanation for things, where it's, quote, like the Holy Spirit is giving you prophecy or foresight or some sort of second, sixth sense kind of seeing.
So there's
beings.
there's a spirituality instead of a religion. That's more of the, I guess the way I don't want to say doctrine, but the way that they operate, or
it's, I think, the way that they use their religion to explain the paranormal. Because isn't religion something to explain and set rules and understanding in society of things we don't understand? And so that was the way they addressed.
This is so easy. God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The devil.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You
could create good and bad and clear lines, and then you say, this is functioning and that. But then the same, like, Well, God gave you the ability to see these other beings. And so that's why there's other beings. When like maybe a very rational parent would be like, let's go to a psychologist.
Really?
I don't know.
Me, if like my kid was talking, if my kid was like talking something like, oh yeah, I see well, tell them hi, tell them that we're peaceful and we don't get down with any bullshit. So, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like kind of, tell them we love them, hopefully they're family and, if they come here with negative energy, they got to go.
Yeah.
Like that's how I look at it. 'Cause even with my experience, I will always take the skeptic side of it, but I know otherwise, you know what I mean? But I always, things can happen and they happen in a mathematical sense. And, one of the greatest, are you familiar with, Anton Wilson?
No, maybe names are not my strong point.
Okay, he wrote this book. Him and this guy named his name's Robert Anton Wilson. Another guy named Robert Shea, and they wrote the Illuminatus trilogy.
Okay.
And it's one of the greatest books I believe written. And the guy is like a full blown occult guy, and he's supposed to pretend to be like he's not and stuff. But a lot of the stuff that they wrote, it's supposed to be this fiction book. A lot of stuff they wrote in it is really far out there, but when you learn about the history and stuff, you're like, fuck, this is real shit that they're talking about. They just made it into this fictional sense. There's this character in there, and the dude's like this genius guy. His name's Hagbard Chelene, and it's spelled like Celine Dion, like Celine, but Hagbard Chelene, and he's talking with this one guy, and he was like, oh, you're only in the 5 cents reality. You know what I mean? He's like, you don't think, outside of whatever. And he goes, God, I forgot what he say. He goes, science came up with the word for things they can't explain, and that's coincidence. He's like, oh yeah, that's just coincidence. And now they don't have to explain anything. It's like, but he's like, it's beyond their math, it's beyond their science, Yeah. But I was like, that's the perfect thing, like coincidence is for what was there for what science can't explain.
Yeah, I mean,
and so religion would be the same way. God.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact sentiment of magic is just things we can't explain with science. And for the longest time, magic in the like medieval era was science tricks and chemistry.
Right.
And smoke and mirrors. And now I think with the data age we have and all this documentation, we're moving closer to being able to explain a lot more things because we have less hearsay and more, experience of what's happening and being able to notate it in our view of space that we can see, because there is, like you were saying, more dimensions and more things happening that we can't even perceive.
Oh yeah, and it's funny is, I've always been like a David Icke guy, and he would talk about infinite and all possibility in this quantum world, and talking about how basically everything we're living in is a hologram, because when you break it down to the atomic level, they're like, everything is see-through, everything is, nothing's solid, it's all vibration and stuff like that. And he was like, he goes, even comedian Bill Hicks figured it out. He had a trip, where he's got to meet some, one of the beings that explained it to him, and da-da-da-da. But he's like, we're a slow vibration, condensed down to, and he goes through and all stuff like that. And this is back in the, this is back in the 90s when he was doing all this stuff. But I remember in the early 2000s when I discovered him, I was like, whoa, and I go, this makes sense. People are like, oh, you're nuts. You're crazy. It's conspiracy. Oh, you're into that weird shit. Da-da-da. And then what's that Japanese physicist, scientist guy with the hair down, shoulder length hair, whatever. And he's just like, doing the TED talk or whatever. He's like, in science explains we're in a holographic and it just breaks it down like that. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're so smart. Jesus. It's like, dude, the conspiracy guy was telling you this, reading ancient fucking, Sanskrit shit, was like, this is what they're telling us, and so it's as funny is like, we live in this in this world, like and now everything is catching up to this, and it's really cool, but it's also spooky, because now you start getting into like these guys, they're making black holes, they're they're trying to jump dimensions and stuff.
That's how that's
the CIA
explanation for time travel attempts at this point would be to
now
fold your fourth dimension,
right, instead of to make it like almost like another floor.
Yep.
Versus try to like go off and find it. But one of the things that they've been doing, and this has been coming out, like the CIA and like big tech companies and these Silicon Valley guys, is they've been trying to use DMT and other hallucinogenics to go interdimensional and try to establish communication with these beings and stuff. Now, when you take we listen to this, and then you take it all the way back to Sir John Dee. He was doing, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but that's the guy that came. That's where the 007 comes up.
Yeah.
He was the guy for the MI6 for the Queen. 007 looked like looking glasses, and he wrote that 007, and he's like, I'm on the lookout for you. That was his sign off to the Queen. But Sir John Dee was the guy, like, he was the guy that was through magic and stuff like that. He was like the Hadron Collider trying to, he was the guy that was trying to get to the macrobes, the beings that are outside, not the microbes, down on the small level looking at. They wanted to go outside of our visible light. And supposedly he made a deal. He made this contact, John Dee, with these beings, these fallen angels or whatever, that he was talking that in his language, and supposedly made like a deal with them or something, and that's like where where the British monarchy really starts taking total like dominance of the world.
Okay.
And that's why probably the Queen hasn't died.
I mean, she also has unlimited funds.
Yeah.
That's
well, the sun never sets on the crown or whatever, the British Empire.
Yeah.
But they've been talking about doing that, on through a chemical level, like getting there quicker.
I think you have to be careful of that because we've all got that friend that's burnt out. But I also like that microdosing's becoming more social acceptable too, where you kind of.
And I've always done that.
Yeah.
I've always done that.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird before it was like a thing, because I would take like just a, 0.3 grams of some shrooms or half a gram of some shrooms, and just go to work or go golfing or off skateboarding. But it was just like, I don't want to be tripping too hard, but I want that like energy. And then all of a sudden I hear people like microdosing, like, I've been doing that for years.
I mean, I got into it to fight migraines because they're debilitating.
Did it work, or
Yes.
it helps? Or
Yes, so much.
did you
I haven't been doing it as much, but yeah.
did you ever try using like mood glasses or anything for that?
Oh man, so the color frames that kind of like
The lenses, yeah. They did.
I have not used those for migraines, but I actually I'm also dyslexic, and I have this thing where if I'm reading books, I mostly see what they call the rivers. It's the negative space of the words, and I focus on that.
What do you mean? What's the negative space?
Like the space in between a word, and you just see like the white of the paper, and that becomes more prominent than the text, and it becomes hard to focus, and it's a very much a vision based thing.
Yeah.
And I had a very thankful of having a public school counselor that was trained in helping with that, and would give us color films that were like the mood glasses to put over the paper.
And that would
It helped so much with the dyslexia. And
Was
so
there any certain color that would, like
for me,
a yellow or
greens
green?
work. Greens, yellow, and then your teal, depending on kind of like the light situation
Was
of the room
that
as
something
well.
that was known to do, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In the 90s, that was what my public school IEP official like counselor had been trained to like help diagnose dyslexia and stuff. And then only recently have I like been reading more. I don't know, like not audiobooks, not ebooks, because I can just adjust the like opacity of the screen, and that helps the like dyslexia thing
On the ebooks?
on the ebooks for sure. But then I bought some mood glasses and have been doing that. Yeah, they're in my bag right now.
Oh, sweet. Well,
It helps.
Well, see, the reason why I ask is when I was a kid, and it was in the 90s, we take a lot of acid and we do stuff. And one time we went to this we did school. We went to San Diego. My friend's mom drove us and stuff. We went to a swap meet fair market thing, whatever. And they were selling these glasses, and they had the red lenses and the blue lenses, and I got the red lenses, and I put them on, and it changed my life. I was like, this is beautiful, you know. So then the blue lenses were cool, but they didn't have the same effect on me, you know. And I wore them till they broke, you know, and stuff like that. But we would trip, you know, and when I was tripping, I'd wear them, and it was just like it made everything. So I went all these years, whatever, and I was online, and I was on Amazon. I was like, dude, red lenses. I'm like, I remember that. So I got them. Yeah. And I wear them. I have them out in my car. I think I wore them on the way down, or I can't remember if I wore them in. But I put them on, and I was like, oh my God, like it just so relaxed, you know. And my wife, she put them on, and she was like, oh my God, this is great, like yeah. So I was playing golf. And I'm out there, and the sun started working. And I was wearing regular sunglasses and stuff. Went inside, got something to eat, you know, and I was like, dude, I'm just getting this bad headache, you know. Like, we was done with the day, but I was like, we go out to the car, and my buddy's like, let's smoke a joint. And I was like, all right. I'm like, hold on, I'm going to switch out my glasses, you know, because I just like wearing them. Yeah. I kid you not, and I swear, 5 seconds, 5 fucking seconds, the pain behind my eye and the back of my head fucking went away like that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I learned early on with migraines to just wear like the darkest sunglasses possible, but like you change the light spectrum you're absorbing, and it changes the way your brain works.
Oh my God. I could not believe it. I was like, I told my buddy, I was like, dude, my fucking headache, it's gone. He's like, get the fuck. I'm like, dude, it's fucking gone. Like, holy shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I stumbled on like a new, you know what I mean? Like, oh fuck, I'm blown away with this, but. Oh
yeah, totally. I'm so happy. A while back on Amazon, I bought a pack of like 9 different colors of lenses.
Oh really?
And so you can just test out if you haven't experienced it. For like everything, you just have a couple of them in your bag, and it helps sometimes if you need to like change a situation.
No, totally. Yeah. No, I remember watching a guy who's like this really smart, you know, he's one of those dudes, he's like, you can learn anything, you know, like, you know, it's like a Tim Ferriss kind of guy, I can't remember, and he always, every time I saw him, he was wearing like different color glasses, and I was like, there's probably something to that. I don't think he's fashion, I think he's doing it like, you know, you'd see him at a talk, and he'd wear like yellow lenses, but then you'd see him like on video and on camera, and he'd be wearing like red lenses, or he'd wear clear ones too. You know, I'm like, I don't really get the clear ones.
Yeah.
You know?
My favorite ones right now they're like a blue gray, and it just kind of takes down, especially fluorescent lights, like have this flicker that we don't register, but man, it hurts after a while.
They say that these can be pulsed to stimulate like hypnosis, to stimulate trance and programming. Yeah, that's why they put them in public schools, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, that's also I think why I had migraines all of high school. I was homeschooled until middle school, and then you know, didn't attend much school because I would dip out because my head hurt so much there. Also, it was frustrating to go from like a situation where it was like, learn whatever you want. Here is all of the encyclopedias to like be like, only today are we working on this one idea, and you have to do it 100 times in an hour. I don't know.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
The educational system is very frustrating, but
What's it? I could, as I say, if you ever want to come back to talk about that, I could talk 8 hours straight on like that without a sip of water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's something I took, I took to task that, and like learning about big pharma. And stuff like that. Like I really, and I'm still learning about a lot of that stuff.
I have a little tiny big pharma conspiracy that I personally am experiencing. I have all these health issues, but I have to take thyroid medicine. And there's a synthetic thyroid medicine, which doesn't work well and has a bunch of side effects. And then there's some derived out of like pig, which I'm like, oh, I don't need animals, but I'm going to take this thyroid so I can live. But lately, every couple months, the pharmacies can't stock the natural one. And they'll go, hey, do you want to switch to the synthetic? I'm like, no, call the other pharmacy across town. Let me find this natural one. And there's 2 of them. And then one of my doctors recently told me that the people that own the patent for the synthetic bought up the patents for the natural and are limiting the supply.
Of course.
And
You're gonna squeeze it out.
Yeah, I can't find any research or notes on it, but in my personal experience and everyone else I know that has to take Nature Thyroid or any other thyroid medicine have every couple months the pharmacy's like, we can't get it. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so then my doctor will, prescribe me a little bit more than I'm supposed to take in a month so I can stock up. Because you don't take it, you can't function. Like, my body doesn't make enough of that hormone, and that's a key hormone for regulating life. So, yeah.
Good God.
It's really frustrating.
It is. Now, are you dealing, are you going through like insurance to get that, or is this like something that you're just really
my insurance doesn't usually cover it. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other frustrating thing. Forever ago, we used to be able to buy something very similar based out of like cow thyroid on the internet, and then that got banned with some good reason. With the mad cow scare, like bovine meat was problematic, but still it was another thing where like, here's an alternative that's accessible and affordable and very similar to the one made into a factory and sold regulated, and it gets banned. And so now you can only buy this regulated one, and it was good for several years. Like, I've been taking this since I was 13.
So you gotta go on like the black market to get a lot of what you're gonna need here.
And there have been places where I know I can buy some drugs on the black market, but pharmaceuticals. But people aren't selling thyroid on the black market. That's not fun.
Yeah. Like, why are we taking this kind of risk?
Yeah.
Look at the markup, dog.
Yeah.
They're like, that's cartel money right there.
No, probably. I mean, you're gonna stick with your Xan and your opioids, but yeah.
If you can find a kidney, you should be able to find some thyroid. Right?
I'm gonna ask my Xanax dealer to get me some thyroid. He'll be like, "What the hell?"
Have for the approach with like the issue with the thyroid, have you taken like any iodine kind of supplements and stuff like that? Because I know like I take I take iodine because we naturally, and I'll tell you what, man, like the mental clarity that I have like with that going through my body, like, that's it's one of the very first things I take in the morning.
Yeah.
On top of like
I take some iodine. I eat a lot of seaweed, which is high in iodine. And
like the chips.
I put a lot of it in soup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, you get past the squishiness, and another thing I learned for a long time is like intuitive eating. And so if your body's like, I want this thing, even not sugar, because that's the top craving ever of everything. But if you're like, man, I'm really thinking about carrots, like, eat that. When I was really young, my mom took me to the doctor and was like, why is she like eating table salt? And he's like, maybe she needs more salt. Like Then you do the blood test, and it's like, I do need more sodium, and like just eat better sodium that has iodine not added to it, but like the one I like is a Celtic sea salt, and it's from a certain area, and it's got all these minerals naturally, and it absorbs better. But yeah, I tried all the natural ways to boost my thyroid production, and it just doesn't. And so I need to supplement that.
Yeah. I've always, when I was in the 3rd grade, we had this lady, I'll never forget her, Miss Love. She came in, and she was like this health and wellness person. But she came in, she told us, all the reason why is you want to wash your hands and all stuff. And she said, yeah, she went all down this list of foods of what's good to eat, like, and what's not good to eat and stuff like that. And then she came to like onions and garlic. And she was like, these fight cancer. If you eat these, you won't. And like, ever since that moment, I'm like, that's all I'm eating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I've always been like, I've had friends and family and stuff like that. I've had people that have, dealt with like health issues. And I was just like, the only thing I always look at like with them was like, oh, look what you're eating. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like we don't think about that at all, because the way we're raised, the sugar and stuff, like it doesn't have an effect on you until it's like there's a problem.
Well, and and it's this kind of like corporate marketing of, we're so inundated with ads of food, fast food, candy,
you're eating the brand, let alone like the sustenance.
And you have a relationship to these brands, and these brands are also owned by big pharma, or they're also owned by tobacco producers, or they're chemical like producers, and
invested in the umbrella company. So the money's not directly there, but then you got to go down the rabbit hole. Oh no, they're in that. Well, that explains like
Yeah, I mean, my parents were pastors, very poor, and so we ate very whole foods, just because my mom grew up on a farm and was like, we're gonna just make things from scratch. And I always observed these kids that lived on SpaghettiOs and Lunchables and didn't have experience to like a plant and how you grow it and how you cut it and how you eat it, and now those people, live on that fast food diet, and we're fighting with type 2 diabetes everywhere, and other, your heart problems and stuff. And you have to recognize that you're putting that, some people have it genetically, but you're putting a lot of that in you, and your body has to process that out.
At every turn.
Yeah.
At every turn,
Yeah.
I've always, I grew up, I was like, oh, I'm eating white bread, or I'm eating wheat bread because wheat's healthy. It's, fiber. And, and I had my bouts with like, sugar and stuff like that, because I love ice cream, I'm an ice cream whore, and I love brownies and shit like that. And, me being a conspiracy guy and a deep research guy, a rabbit hole guy, I was on this website called Red Ice. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're out of Sweden, and this guy does like free and paid content, but he has these really great interviews. And one of the interviews, there's like, we're interviewing Dr. William Davis, or Davis Williams. It's one of those interchangeable names. He's here to talk about his book Wheat Belly.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like the sound of that. I'm like, I'm a wheat guy. Like, that doesn't sound positive to me, So I listened to this thing, and this guy's just blowing my mind. I'm like, he's describing all my ailments. You know what I mean? And like, and the dude was a cardiologist, but he saw all the people that were having heart problems and stuff was all tied into they're eating wheat. They're eating, they're carving up eating wheat like every meal. And even when they're trying to avoid it, it's in the sauce. It's in the,
Yeah.
And I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, I go down. I was like, holy fuck. It's some serious shit, dude.
Yeah. Another like food, that's everything's corn, but yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. It all turns into sugar.
Yeah.
It all gets processed. So it goes in, it goes in corn chip, right? Or whatever, or a sandwich, goes in as bread. It goes in processed sugar on the glycemic index.
I mean,
roof.
but sugar's our ultimate fuel. It's just like processed sugar, white sugar is why some people get so addicted to it, your soda, whatever, because you're just immediate, like, no processing. Your body's just like, that's that thing I want, and I don't have to work for it. Instant gratification.
No, totally.
But then, your natural candies, your berries, your fruit have all of that other minerals and things balanced in it that helps the body process that sugar out and doesn't leave your body at a deficit of what it needs to process that. And so that's, I don't know, healthier. You just gotta eat. You don't go all raw, but eat like as whole of a food as you can. And back to avoiding.
Shop on the aisles and not shop on the outside, not the inside.
Yeah. I mean, and
it's actually just shop on one side. The other side has the ice cream.
No, that's a whole other world. I grew up. My mother is severely allergic to milk and wheat, so we already had a very limited diet, and I had to.
Oh wow.
Access my allergies all the time, avoiding eggs are in everything. At a certain point, I wasn't eating soy, corn. I don't eat onions. That's a migraine trigger for me, but just excessive, having to.
That's a staple for me.
I mean, garlic is, you just supplement onions for garlic.
What about shallots?
They're borderline. Scallions are good.
You're like, why take the risk? Oh, scallions are good? Yeah, those tons of flavor.
They're kind of different family-wise. But yeah.
See, it's all the elevation with the the layers that you get with the flavors. So
yeah, but just being aware of how your body reacts to food. People all the time are like, oh, every time I eat this, I get tired. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't eat that.
Yeah, and that was a thing. The wheat bill, you'd get the itis, that kind of stuff like that. But I noticed it with other foods. I had to lose a lot of weight and do like a cleanse and stuff like that for that to stop happening, And even now, you still eat some stuff and it'll bog you down. You know? I do a lot of intermittent fasting, but that's just always how I've been because I'm not a morning. I love breakfast food.
Yeah.
I don't like eating first thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the way I look at it, I want to go for as much as possible where my body is like eliminating everything out before I start putting other stuff back in. And it's funny as you're talking about you don't eat and stuff, or if it's having an effect. Being
aware, keep a food diary or recognize every time I eat blank, I don't feel great. Maybe don't eat it.
Right. Yeah. That's too logical of a discipline, to follow through. Be like, that's so simple, but I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
Scroll.
I'm
but
gonna just keep eating the donuts and drive through. Yeah.
But with the intermittent fasting type deal is my kids and in with the sugar and stuff. My kids perform better in school without breakfast. So every morning when grandma, when we were all living in the same house, while their house was being built and I was getting my life back together after getting arrested and shit like that. So we were living with our in-laws, but grandma, she'd wake up the kids and it was like, oh, here, have a bowl of cereal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They'd go to their class and the teacher like, oh, he's terrible today. He wouldn't listen. Yeah. Well, the days that I would wake him up and go, we'd take him, get him ready for school and we'd take him straight there. They wouldn't have anything, and they're great, and I was like, you can't feed the kids no more before school because you're short circuiting them.
Well, maybe even analyze that sugar's not your breakfast.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, but they're getting hopped up.
Yeah.
It was like, what else are you going to get them to eat in the morning, though?
I know.
You know
I guess my high school breakfast was leftover meatloaf. Just slice of that.
That sounds great. That sounds really good.
And maybe on toast. And then you just start out with protein. And that's where you.
My friends' grandparents, they're farmers. They lived up to their 90s, and there's a pound of bacon a day.
Yeah.
They'd eat a whole bunch of eggs, a bunch of grits. You know,
The whole fat's the problem, not sugar. I mean, that's a proven conspiracy. Was that marketing, advertising was trying to make fat the bad guy
Totally.
and promote sugar farming.
well, there was that, and there was a big byproduct from other stuff that they were doing.
Yeah.
So now they had to sell these vegetable cooking oils.
Yeah.
You know, there's a great they call it a documentary, but it's actually just a presentation called "The Oiling of America," and this lady broke down all these charts, data, going from heart disease, all this stuff. And then she broke down from the 1800s, like, look at the diet, look at the obesity level, look at the blood pressure, look at, all the stuff that was almost non-existent, wasn't a problem. Then they're like, boom, look at, this is where we switch from animal fat to vegetable fat,
Yeah.
heart disease, going on through, and then we have the introduction of, at this time, that's where they start really pushing heavy towards vaccines, and they start pushing really heavy with vegetable or the sugar.
Yeah.
So everything is and also margarines.
Yeah.
So we're getting off of
Animal
and,
product, like whole product, and more into a synthetic structured product. Yeah.
and all that stuff is
Correlated.
it ties into like the Rockefellers and big oil getting into the medical fields and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And no one sees this.
And our corporations influencing our public policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
those were all the same people who, you get into the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and the Vanderbilts and all stuff like that. But those are the people who were very instrumental on designing and setting up our education system.
Yep.
And it was set up for a way for people who wouldn't question, and they would be either unquestioning consumers or soldiers.
Yeah, your factory worker.
Mm-hmm.
And now our education system doesn't really create analytical thinkers that can be developers and can be, work within we don't have a factory infrastructure economy anymore in society. Like, people are worried about robots replacing everyone, and shouldn't that be not a fear but a step towards utopia? Like less of a work week, and like now maybe like I lean more into like the idea of universal basic income, because if we can create enough robots to do everything that's important, to drive us around and to make our food into, then we can do better things and grow humanity and make the arts and focus on education. And
I'm for a lot of that. I think that's a good thing. One thing about human beings, and as we find out, especially when we get more into a world of affluence and stuff like that, is we really need to create something. We really need to do something. When we become sedentary and stuff like that, like, a lot of bad things happen to the body, let alone the mind, and then the spirit and the communities. We're finding out, like with the way social media is, like people are just here. And I'm not knocking any of that stuff, but what I'm getting at is like, we do need a level of like factory workers. We do need a level of like physical involvement. And I'm not saying, because a lot of people, the misconception is like a factory job is a shit job.
yeah.
And in a sense it is, but that's for somebody that's a shit job. There's somebody who is completely enthralled with that. And there's so many of us that they will gravitate to those positions if they didn't, if it was more of an option of what you wanted to do versus what you had to do.
What I would present is that if theoretically everyone had their basic needs met, that person that found joy in factory work, with the right maybe art education, found joy in making ceramics as an art form. And it's still the similar like processes, but now they're doing something that's creating and beneficial. Or maybe they find joy in
Will we get more into inventing?
and more in inventing, but to create more people that think in a creating way and not and you can create within parameters. You also can create for yourself. And so a lot of education, I think, dumbs down our inventors and forces them to the
Oh, 100%. No, 100%.
But I think we could easily bring up the people that enjoy the factory repetitive work to finding a beneficial form of similar routine and creating that isn't making some doohickey. It's making something that has personal value and society value and can be viewed as art, but the root of that would be art education and recognizing what art is and how it is beneficial. And that's one of the first things that gets cut from education.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not that we need to create artists, but we need to create people that are receptive and understand what art is and how it's beneficial to society.
Oh, 100%. That's art is art, and like music and languages is the binding factor between the mental and the physical. You know what I mean? That's like that's the spirit to the mind and body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you tap in on both sides, and art and the creativity isn't just left to the canvas. It's the world is the canvas.
And it's accessing thoughts and communication without words. Sometimes, from what I work in, like 2D, is assessing your point of view and how you can recognize what you're feeling or what you're experiencing or what other people are experiencing, and it creates empathy, and that's really important.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say we're getting close over here. We've gone an hour 45 in.
Damn.
And I was gonna say I do myself. I have a guy I got to pick up in the airport in a half hour. So, I really enjoyed this. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is one of the things I got to be honest. Here we are on the very first thing. I'm like, yeah, we got a porn star on, and we didn't even talk about what's about titties or anything.
No,
So
yeah. I mean, my titties are on the internet if you want to see them. It's Quinn Rain.
Yeah, no. I think this was. I think this was. I'm a boob guy, so I think. But for me, this was equally as good as the. It's probably even better than the cleat. Well, I don't know. I like both. That's why I always tell them. That's what I always tell the missus. I says, wear something sexy if you're gonna talk. No.
Yeah. That's fun. No, my friend made a joke the other day of like, people aren't following you on Twitter because they want to hear your opinions on something. I'm like, actually, I mean, a lot of us, like sex workers, adult workers, porn stars, have strong opinions in education and valid points.
No, totally. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The fallacy is everybody's a bimbo in any kind of like industry of around sex or any kind of adult entertainment, and you're like, it could be anything further from the truth.
I mean, yeah, I'd say your stripper's probably your better businessman than the businessman giving her money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
dude, that's a whole new. We were gonna have a girl that was she works the country where she's goes to all the different. I guess she's a headliner or
your
like,
featured dancer.
Yeah, featured dancer. Yeah. And her guy shut it down. He wouldn't let her. Like, dude, bring him on. We're like, bring him on. And he's like, no, fuck that, dude. I'm like, oh, because you don't want to be out as the PlayStation guy. Oh, my man, he's great. What does he do? Oh, sits at home.
Yeah.
But he's got washboard abs. Look at it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, that's I've worked with many porn stars in stand-up comedy. And it's like it's annoying to me when that's all people want to talk about with them. I'm like, dude, like really, like, I don't like to bring it up as far as I just figure you probably get enough of it, but at the same time, there's not
a lot of interesting things in that. I mean, maybe some people are very interested in me, the conversations I want to have, we had of like the unknown and the things to talk about and that underlying. And I feel like the sex is pretty straightforward and it's on camera and it's great and it's a fun job, but I don't know. There's not a lot of. I mean, there's drama, but there's not like scandal. There's nothing like.
Yeah, so that's
like
what I wanted to
exciting.
That's one of the things. Okay, so
like I love it. It's exciting, but it's not as interesting to me as what we talked about for the last hour and 40.
No, definitely, and that's one thing. But just so I can say, oh yeah. Now you were saying earlier that you deal with escorts. Or
yeah.
whatnot,
so my other job, because like. man, it's rough if you had to shoot 5 days a week, porn wise. I work doing logistics in Las Vegas for in-room entertainers is the resume. I like schedule and book for escorts. It's fun.
So what's like the drama?
I don't even have a lot. I mean, I don't know. I've been doing it for a couple months. It becomes pretty straightforward. A guy calls and he's like, I want to see so-and-so. And you're like, okay, I'll send you so-and-so. And if usually they're real nice if they're not drunk or on too much coke. Like that's, and the girls can sense that out real quick. Those girls that go into those rooms, again, very smart businesswomen. I've seen them walk out of a room with $10K. Regularly.
I could imagine.
And not in a thief way. They were happily given that money for the entertainment they gave. And generally, that's not as explicit as you'd think it was. It usually is companionship and an ear and people that, men particularly, that don't feel they're recognized by a certain level of women, a very beautiful woman that's in their space and giving them time.
I used to bartend at what's now the Park, but used to be the Monte Carlo, and I had some very high end. The girl, she looked exactly like Sigourney Weaver. Yeah. Very high end. Yeah, I had a mad crush on her, but it's funny too. And I'd make passes at her and stuff. She's like, "Come on, come on, I'm dead. Come on." Yeah. And I'm like, all woman, But she would be like, "Oh yeah," she's like, the ball kickers in the night, or whatever.
Yeah.
What? She'd be talking to her friends. I'm like, what? She'd be like, yeah, the guy gives me like $5,000 to kick him in the balls.
Yep.
And I'm like, and then what? And he goes, then he takes me out and we go wherever, and if whatever I want to do from there, or be done with him.
But Louis Vuitton, or you want your
she goes, that's how
$500 dinner. Yeah.
She goes, that's how the date. She goes, that's how it would start. She goes, I'd go wherever, meet up with him and stuff. We'd go into a high-end spa or whatever, wherever he was at, and he would just act like nothing, and he would just sit down at the end of a lounge chair or whatever, and she's like, I'd just fucking kick him like 3 times blast, and then be like, yeah,
everyone's perverted. I mean, that's an extreme one, but yeah, I mean, these guys all have something that they can't scratch that itch normally in society. They come out to Vegas, and I mean, the other thing I think that's really interesting is like Vegas is a really great city for escorts. And then the other major escort city, and Vegas is branded to be Sin City. That's where you come and have all the fun you can. You gamble and you drink, and bars are 24 hours. And then you can see women everywhere, even though it's not technically legal, but there's some loopholes around that. Or you could go out to Nye and like see, a girl at a brothel. But the other biggest city for escort work is DC.
Oh, totally, right? Yeah.
Because they all are suppressed and won't access the fact that they have perversions because, I don't know, religion and society make people
it's all
stuff
a front.
who they like.
It's
but
all
like
a
you
front.
can't be real about who you really are.
No, totally.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Just be honest.
No, it's all a front. That's why they attack. They come up with these crazy anti-gay laws and shit, but then they're found blowing dudes and the fucking guys blowing other guys, and they're like, oh.
Or like every other guy that voted against abortion, like has had like documented sent mistresses to abortion clinics.
No, 100%. Yeah.
They're all hypocrites.
No, the whole thing is a joke. But Quinn, I just want to say thank you for coming in. Let everybody know social media where they can find you.
On all my social media, Twitter and Instagram is Quinn QUINN _rain RAIN, so QUINN _RAIN. There's also, you can put that name into your favorite clip site, but follow my Twitter, and soon there'll be a way to buy clips directly. So,
right on.
Yeah, that's coming out this summer.
Nice, love it. Always, always got the hustle going.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's going to conclude this episode of the ThinkStopper. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I thoroughly did. It went by. I wish I had more time, but we're gonna. I want to have you on again. I'd love to get into more of this. It's very rare that I get to go deep. You know what I mean? And I know like we didn't really even like take one all the way down the rabbit hole. So, no, I'm really glad we were able to link up and do this. So
Yeah.
awesome. All right, guys. Yeah, follow Quinn Rain on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, and go to her website. You know, I'm gonna put all that stuff up, but you know, as far as the links and stuff. But thanks again. Enjoy, like, share, spread the word, and you know, stop and think for a second. Don't let them get you. Peace.
Thank you.